with strikers, segueing on a little bit, I'm happy with Jackson being our main guy. There is a massive obsession with strikers at the moment. And I understand, because Jackson, this is going to seem a little lazy, so forgive me, but Jackson is a little bit more Anelka, Isak kind of, could be a winger, could be a forward, is developing his game over time. Whereas what I think Chelsea fans from the discourse I see seem to want is a flat track bully number 9, big in the box, big presence, great finisher. And I understand that. I don't think there are that many of them about, to be honest with you. And I know I hinted at some some banter that I have with the SPTC lot. Is with Gyökeres. I love Gyökeres. I think he's a really, really talented football player. What I don't think he is elite yet. And the reason I don't think he's elite is because I think the Portuguese league is very poor. And the teams that you play in the bottom half of that league are genuinely League One to Championship, lower level Championship teams. And Gyökeres got 50 goals in 140 games in the Championship, which is not elite. He is doing amazing at Sporting. I know he got the hat-trick against City, which is what I took a lot of grief for that in the group chat. But 2 penalties, and then he shrugged off a 19-year-old making his Champions League debut. If you apply real context to it, you've got to score your goals, right? And it's amazing. So I can't take it away. And if Jackson had done it, I'd be backing it to the hilt. So I can see that. I don't think Joarez will come because he doesn't like Winstanley. So there's that.
Who does?
I believe he will probably... Yeah, I believe he will probably go to Man United, in truth. And just follow Amorim, because at least Amorim has a system that seemingly gets the absolute best out of him. It will be very interesting to see someone like Gyökeres in the Premier League, where the quality level is so much higher. I do think top players in Portugal transition well into the Premier League. I do. Chelsea have got a long history of those players, as do other teams. We can all think of a few players that actually at top clubs that have come straight from Portugal and smashed it. Bruno Fernandes is probably the most obvious one. Chelsea, David Luiz, Matic, Morelos. We could go on. So, Gyökeres is 26. He's going to be 27 next summer. He's killing it for Sporting Lisbon. Absolutely killing it. But I just don't think he's going to come to Chelsea. And definitely not if you don't get the Champions League. And like I say, he could get over the problems with Winstanley, but I don't know. And then he will definitely want to be the starting striker. And then what does that mean for Jackson? Recent reports over the last few days, and Nkunku's unhappy. Well, I could have written a report and put that out because that's just obvious. He's obviously going to go to PSG in the summer. I mean, clearly, which would be a shame because I really like him, but he deserves to be starting, I think, and he's probably not starting in this Chelsea team right now. So, and I don't think that's Jackson's fault. I think that's Cole Palmer's fault. I think Nkunku was meant to be that 10 to bring everything together, and it just happened that Cole Palmer's much better at the moment. So, and Nkunku, I don't think he's an out-and-out number 9. I think he's better than João Felix, but I think he prefers to be that just behind the striker role, just kissing the striker's feet in a sense, or kissing his heels, sorry. We don't really have that going on right now, I think in the Premier League teams anyway. I would certainly be interested to see Nkunku in the middle with Palmer on the right, and see how that goes, just to get him on the pitch and give it a bash. But yeah, Nkunku will go. Do we need a main striker? I don't know what anyone means by main striker. I think Nico's doing pretty well. And the names I hear consistently, Osimhen maybe plays in the Turkish league, which stinks. So can you get like a good understanding of where he's at? I don't know. I've never thought he was the best striker in Italy, not once. And in truth, he never has been. He was amazing when Napoli won the league, but I still think Lautaro Martinez is the best striker in Italy. And this season, I think it's Thuram, who Chelsea should definitely look at if we are going to look at strikers. I've been banging that drum forever. I went to the Chelsea Inter game at Stamford Bridge at the start in pre-season, and Thuram just looked outstanding. I don't know why Chelsea don't have a look in. They got him for free as well. Inter Milan got him for free, and they're a club that need money. So just go and throw some money at him and bring him in. In that sense, I could see him working almost better than anyone else. Benjamin Sesko, I think he's great. I don't think his age profile aligns with Jackson, and one of them, there's going to be turbulence there, and I like what Jackson's been doing. I love Lois Openda at RB Leipzig. I think Openda's someone I could certainly be interested in Chelsea sniffing around. He's been amazing in France. He's been amazing in Germany, and maybe could take that step to the Premier League. Other than that, and Gyökeres, I don't know. The Osimhen thing, he's a good player. He's a really talented player, but I just don't think Chelsea need the noise. I know that's a bit of a ridiculous thing to say, and I know he's been great in Turkish league, but seriously, I expect him to score every game in the Turkish league. If he's as good as everyone says he is, he should score every single game in the Turkish league and borderline assist, because he's playing at the best team, and it's just not a helpful indicator of where he's at. In my opinion, Galatasaray haven't lost a game. We all know Galatasaray are the best team in that league, give or take, all the time. Mourinho's been not very kind about the league itself. And if you look at it, I mean, Ciro Immobile, Edin Dzeko and Dusan Tadic are the top 3 scorers in that league. And that therefore lends me to think there's not very many strikers Chelsea could get. I think Thuram is the best option. Everyone knows I love Inter Milan. But Thuram, I think, is the best option because Lautaro is not going to leave. He's now Inter's highest all-time scorer that's not Italian. He's top 10 all-time scorers at Inter. He's captain there. He's not going to go. Thuram could go, and he's the only option I see around that is actually sensible, good age, great name. Thuram on the back of a Chelsea shirt would just look sick. And is physically maybe a little bit more what Chelsea fans are after, that bigger, clinical guy. With loads of technical ability. So I don't know where Chelsea go in the striker department, because I'm not sure Jackson's really done anything to deserve ousting.
Yeah, I mean, a lot there in terms of like the strikers. I was a firm believer during the summer that I just thought the smart thing to do was to stick with Nicolas Jackson. It almost felt a little bit like we had a repeat of the Tammy Abraham situation at the end of 1920. Where he'd put up really good numbers, but there was a clamor. And I've got to admit, I was part of it as well. The excitement of that 2020 summer when we signed everyone. And, there was a common consensus that we needed to upgrade or just like really bolster the squad after the transfer ban. And we did. And then I don't think anyone is left really from, especially the attacking signings we made from that period. And I thought that Jackson had done so much and done so well. His numbers were beyond just like all right. They were like, in terms of the context and the narrative and the pressure and scrutiny that came with that role and some of the high profile misses he had, and then the fact that at the end of the season he's putting up numbers that were even better than Didier's first season at Chelsea, which I know meant a lot to him. And then him coming into this season, and I think all round his game is excellent. He's had some quiet weeks, but I just think the way his all-round game has developed is incredible. The way he's able to shrug off defenders, the way he's able to link up with others, his connection with Cole Palmer, Chelsea's best player, is very important, and it's something that has continued.
Great on the ball.
Yeah, and also he has a connection now, it feels like, with Moises Caicedo. He's set up a few goals for Jackson as the season's gone on. He went away to Anfield and kind of only had 2 chances and put one of them away. And because Chelsea lost the game, everyone kind of forgets that. It was a brilliant finish away at a massive ground. And
100%.
I look at any name you throw at me. Thuram, I disagree, because Thuram is a player that I've also been watching since the Gladbach days, and I've always been impressed by his goal scoring and around play. And watching him live, absolutely batter our centre-backs at the time. I mean, he completely got round Fofana, got round Cole, I think it was, and then the way he finished was incredible. And I think absolutely agree with you that as a profile too, because you need to, we talk about always consistent profiles or someone that is going to be able to deal with that level, deal with the physicality and deal with the demands of that role, which comes with a lot of scrutiny. I think it's just another case of shiny toy syndrome. Like, people just want the big striker all the time. And the argument I would make is, if you look at just the plain numbers of Nicolas Jackson, I think if we'd signed someone for like 80 million and they'd put up the same numbers, am I right, am I wrong? I think most people would look at that and be content with the output so far. But because Jackson was bought for a low fee, he was very raw in his first season, there's this kind of still preconception. He's almost in some ways treated like an academy player, it feels like at times. Like the narrative around him is that he could just never be trusted. And I just completely disagree, because his numbers are showing the signs of a player that for me is only getting better. And because we've had such bad judgment, luck, whatever you want to say, in that area, it's not that I think it'd be silly of me to sit here and tell you no one could be better, no one could upgrade. But the clutter in that area is already an issue. You just mentioned Nkunku, which I think is a whole nother separate conversation that I think is only going to increase, especially the more he doesn't play. So I have a fear that you just add more clutter onto it, and then you eventually end up losing players that you might as well keep. And if we stay the path with Jackson, I mean, he's already, I think, doubled his price based on the number of goals he's got in today's market. In today's market, his number is in terms of what Chelsea. Because I always think it was always what I used to say about Tammy Abraham. If Tammy Abraham, whilst he was at Chelsea putting up those numbers, was elsewhere putting up numbers at Sporting Lisbon, at Napoli, at Benfica, people would be getting excited about him and saying we need to sign this guy. So I'm Team Jackson, and in terms of where the money needs to go in this Chelsea squad, two key areas for me. Number one is goalkeeper, and number two is probably a dominant centre-back. But maybe that changes with Fofana putting on performances like he did against Arsenal. But it absolutely should be first on the board that we discussed first, which is goalkeeper. I think striker, I still am just not overly convinced that is the big question mark that it maybe was 12 months ago.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, genuinely, I know some people don't like this line of argument, but Chelsea got goals from so many places, man. Like I was saying earlier, Pedro Neto is going to grow and grow. Pedro Neto has all the hallmarks of a world-class football player. Like my best friend in the world is a Wolves fan, and he could not wax lyrical more about how good Pedro Neto is. His goal against Arsenal was outstanding, and he's been slowly into this team, and I think he's going to really lock it down. Madueke on his day is going to score goals, no drama. Talking about Wolverhampton, he got a nice hat-trick there, and I think he's going to increase his output. He's a little bit one-dimensional sometimes, but still very hard to stop. Cole Palmer is literally one of the best players I've ever seen play for Chelsea. Jackson will get 20 goals all comps, pretty much season in, season out at this point. I agree with the Tammy Jackson comparisons. I think with Tammy it was aesthetics. With Jackson, I think he's treated as though he's lightweight and immature, when people forget that actually he might be slightly lighter weight than you'd want for a striker, because everyone wants Costa or Didier, but he's a far better dribbler than Costa was. I don't know, Didier was an elite dribbler too, so I wouldn't put him there yet, but he's far better on the ball than Costa was, not off the ball, but far better on the ball. And again, like we've sort of hammered away the last 10-15 minutes or so, there's not many strikers out there in truth. And the ones that are, there's a few question marks. So we'll have to see what happens. Goalkeeper, definitely. An outstanding centre-back, I do understand that completely, because I think Disasi's not good enough and Badiashile is not good enough. I thought Badiashile was really going to be good enough. And I've struggled letting go of the fact that he's not going to be good enough. But he's not going to be good enough, I don't think. So him and Disasi, I don't think are there. In truth, I would sell both, bring in someone that's great, and then put a youth team player in. That would be what I would like to see happen. I like Tosin more than Disasi and Badiashile as a player. I think he's more impactful on the squad as a leadership profile. I've heard and spoke to a few club sources about that, and he's been very, very highly praised in that side of things, which people have always shat on me for saying it, but I think leadership and those kind of traits are really important in a team. Especially, are we the youngest? Are we the youngest team in the Premier League, give or take? Maybe alongside Brighton. We're certainly up there. People do forget how young we are, because this project seems to have stopped and started. But Chelsea is so young still, and having someone that's a bit more coherent as a leader, a little bit more experienced, I think that's really impactful. I don't know who I would go for as a lights out centre back, because I like the Fofana Colwill thing, and I don't know if I want that being broken. I'd rather watch it grow.